Hey, spoilers. If you haven't seen Endgame, don't watch this, okay? I'm gonna spoil the whole thing. Or, like, I guess if you don't care, you can watch it as well. But I'm spoiling the entire movie, all right? We're talking spoilers throughout the entire thing. It's gonna be a long video. So strap in, get yourself coffee, delicious, or a snack or something, and prepare yourself, because we're gonna be talking about the movie. Because I want to talk about the movie. I don't even care if this is not something I do normally. I just want to talk about the movie because I think it's cool. So, Avengers Endgame. Interesting film. Pretty good film. I liked it a pretty decent amount. Not as good as Infinity War, in my opinion. However, had parts that were better than Infinity War. And some of those parts kind of elevate the movie. Some of those parts don't. And it really depends on what we're talking about. So I'm going to talk about the movie within 3-act structure. I'm going to talk about it act to act to act. So Act 1 is the beginning all the way till right before they do their little time heist. Act 2 is the time heist all the way till Thanos coming out of the portal. And then Act 3 is the giant battle and the end of the movie. So that's how the act structure goes. I think that's pretty much how the acts went. I don't know if there's a different way you would call it. At least that's the way I think it would be. Those are the way the acts work. But that's just the way I'm going to break it up. So starting off the movie, we have Hawkeye, and it started with no previews, I think, of any kind. And wow, that scene was incredibly effective. So you all know the Alfred Hitchcock's old saying about suspense, about the bomb under the table. I don't know if you haven't, but if you haven't heard about it, Alfred Hitchcock, the person who directed like The Bird, Psycho, all those movies, Rear Window, underrated, really like Rear Window. But he has this saying where you have two people talking at a table and then a bomb goes off and you get 5 seconds of shock and it's over. But you have people sitting at a table talking and then you show a bomb underneath the table and it's set to go off in 5 minutes. And it creates a whole new level of suspense. Someone who does this very, very well is someone like Quentin Tarantino in the beginning of Inglourious Basterds, when you finally find out that there are Jews hidden underneath the floorboards of this French guy's farm, and that was the bomb. And then you realize the whole new thing is going on, because before you didn't know if he was hiding Jews or not, because it was just him being questioned by the Nazi officer. You maybe assumed a little bit, but you just didn't quite know, and then that was the reveal. So we're here, and Hawkeye is with his family, and you automatically know, oh God, oh, it's gonna happen, isn't it? Oh God, oh, why isn't the girl coming back into frame? Why, fudging chickles. It was so sad. It was pretty sad. It was exactly what you expected it to be, and it happened, and it was very effective. I found it incredibly effective and very painful, but you knew it was happening. But I was very pleased with how they did the direction of this scene. It's probably one of my top 3 favorite scenes in the whole movie. The way they had the camera have that nice, I think it was a wide angle shot, and the girl, his daughter, just didn't come back into frame, and then he turns around, his family's just missing. It was really well done, and I was very pleased with it. Moving on forward, we have the opening where, Robert Downey Jr. is with Nebula, and Nebula is trying to settle down a little bit. She's a little bit less like, ugh, I hate Gamora. I hate everything. I'm so fucking mad all the time. She's no longer that as much as she used to be. At least not so much anymore. Now she's trying to play football like what I used to do with In-N-Out receipts with my family back in the day. And that's fun. It's kind of a cute little bit of a bonding moment. Tony Stark had his little goodbye to Pepper Potts, and then he was about to die from, I guess it would be asphyxiation or suffocation if they're running out of oxygen, but whatever the reason is. And then Captain Marvel shows up and is like, hey, what's up? I'm here to save the day and bring you back. And I don't really care that it was kind of a coincidence. Marvel is full of coincidences. And as far as we know, the pager from Samuel L. Jackson, from Nick Fury, was bringing Captain Marvel to Earth. So there's a good chance that she came to Earth first, and maybe was like, hey, how's it going? And like, yeah, and Rocket was probably there, like, yeah, my ship's gone. Here's the coordinates, and then she gets the ship. That wouldn't surprise me, I can bet that would be in a deleted scene, and that would be explained, but it's not that bad of a coincidence. Anyway, she brings him back down. Tony Stark has that wonderful moment with Pepper Potts, which was really nice. And then I love what they did, making him look really dehydrated and sickly. He looked like a man about to die. He looked so skinny and so pale, and his little freak out against Cap was extremely well done. Robert Downey Jr., of course, being a pretty good actor and really showing a little bit more of his chops right there, which is something you see a lot in the first hour. A lot of the major players show more of their acting chops, and it's really impressive, especially Thor in the beginning. He's pretty depressed right now for, I wouldn't say good reason, but I get it. I totally get why you would feel depressed for that kind of thing. And so then they do their little fancy pantsy. Oh, there's the energy signatures in the universe and galaxy, and oh, Thanos is here. And then they go to Thanos, and he's a farmer alone, and he destroyed the stones, and they whack him. And then you get the biggest, oh my god, title card in any of the Marvel movies. 5 years later, everyone in the theater had this audible gasp, like this kind of like, oh no, kind of thing right after that, because Thanos gets capped easy. And then 5 years later, 5 years, that's a while, especially in Marvel time. That's a long while, and everyone's mostly different now. Cap is leading a men's group of people, I guess it's kind of a men's group, of people trying to get over everything and trying to get back into society. If you didn't know, the gentleman talking about how he went on a date was actually one of the directors. So funny little Easter egg there. But I really enjoyed the men's group part. I don't know why particularly I found that scene so impactful, but there's something very poetic about a man who can't get over something trying to tell people to move on, right? It's kind of humorous. It's putting up that front, like it's time to move on in the world when he himself can't even do it either. And it really shows the devastation that happened. They have a large memorial going on. Some of the areas of streets, they look really ransacked now because maybe, I don't know, I mean, half people are gone. Half people are there to be looted, I suppose. I'm sure it was pretty bad in the beginning, but you have the whole men's group, and then you have Scott Lang. And Scott Lang has actually a pretty solid amount of screen time, and I enjoyed it. Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp were both like B to B minus C movies for me. I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was a little bit mediocre. Ant-Man was okay. But they were very much the Marvel movie, right? The evil villain that's just another version of Ant-Man. And they were very for me. I didn't really like them. But Scott Lang did really well in this movie. He pops out of the quantum tunnel or whatever it's called 5 hours later for him, 5 years for everyone else, and he's going around figuring out what happened because everyone's been snapped and the world's gone crazy. He's trying to see if his daughter's on the big list of people who got snapped, and then he finds his daughter, and there's another really emotionally good scene with Paul Rudd showing a little bit of acting chops. It was really, really touching. And the whole thing with him realizing like, oh yeah, it's 5 years. His daughter's older. His daughter's a lot older. And that would be rough. I don't know. Can you imagine any of you watching right now who have maybe like a 5-year-old kid and now he's in 10th, he's in 5th grade and he's going to middle school after 5 hours? Like that's heartbreaking. That's rough. That's really rough. Well, at least he'll look pretty good for 5 years older. But going from there, of course, he arrives back in the Avengers castle. I don't know what to call it, their base. And Scarlett Johansson has changed none, but now she has red hair, so ooh, fancy. But I like how she is keeping tabs with everyone, whether it be Captain Marvel, who has a new haircut for some reason. It's fine. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. With War Machine, you've got Rocket, Nebula, etc., and they're all trying to do their usual stuff. And again, there's another time where Scarlett Johansson can show off her acting chops because she's having a really hard time keeping tears down when everything's going crazy. And Hawkeye's out there just slaughtering people, apparently. We could have a fantastic Hawkeye movie in the 5 years time that was spent there as like a vigilante. We could have a great movie like that. A great movie because it looks like he is going hard. And also, he knows the way of the samurai now, apparently. He's going in Japan, he's having sword fights with the Yakuza. And He's just gunning people down in the streets. Apparently, he just murdered a bunch of cartel members in Mexico. He's going he's not going Batman. He's going like Punisher with the sword, and that's kind of cool. I appreciated that. But you have more emotional dialogue, which I love the first act of this movie. I thought it was probably my favorite act. The last act was great, but the first act I adored because it finally gave all these really good actors and actresses, because these are very talented people. Scarlett Johansson is talented, even though she gets a lot of just the plain white bread roles. She's pretty talented. Jeremy Renner is pretty talented. Robert Downey Jr. is pretty talented. These are all really talented actors who have had to be mostly blank slates the entire time at Marvel. So they finally have the option to have a little bit of acting going on, and it feels great. And there's such a nice payoff from it, both from an emotional standpoint and from a story-based standpoint. But eventually, you do get into a little bit of filler talk as things go on, and then Paul Rudd, but Scott Lang comes in there. He's like, I got my quantum stuff, and then they go try to do their little bit of a time travel thing, and then you get Thor. Oh yes, Thor. Doctor Strange saw into the future and saw a fat drunk Thor play Fortnite, and that's why he died. Yeah, fat drunk Thor playing Fortnite. Wow, I didn't expect the Fortnite thing. Me and my buddies used to meme a lot that Infinity War was the Fortnite movie because some little kids at Fry's wanted to go watch the Fortnite movie with their parents. That's what they said, and whew, that hurt. But it was really funny, so we decided to keep going on that. So the fact that Fortnite's actually in there is pretty hilarious. Korg is alive. That's great. Love that. Very happy to see that. Thor. How do I feel about Thor? I am very conflicted. On one hand, it makes sense, sort of. I would imagine he would drink a lot and, just kind of end up that way. I get it. He has a lot of guilt riding on him. And it was good for the comedy. The gags were pretty good because of it. However, and we'll get into this in part 2, there is a different way I would have actually ended up doing it, but we'll talk about this a little bit later in Act 2. But they grab Thor, grab Scott Lang, grab Hawkeye, grab everyone. Oh, Bruce Banner is now the Hulk, but he's also not the Hulk. He's Smart Hulk now. That's cool. He's eating a bunch of eggs and he's dabbing. He dabbed. What the... It's funny, yes, but oh boy, I hope this movie ages better than... He dabs! Okay, he dabs. Anyway, he's now Smart Hulk. And they established their whole time travel thing pretty well, I think. I like the idea because apparently this is a common thought process with physicists, is that when you go back in the past and change the past, it doesn't change your future because your present was now the past still in its own line. So even if you go forward and then go back and then forward, you're still in the same area. It doesn't really change anything. It might change something for their reality, but not your reality. Yours is all the same. There's not betting on games, and they made that good comedic side of them talking about all the different kinds of movies that did time travel that way, and that was pretty good. But I like the way they set that up because that means nothing that they mess up in the past actually has any real world consequences in the future, and therefore they can continue a nice bit of consistency. And I like that. So anyway, then they go and they do their little time travel thing, and Tony Stark has a kid now, which is interesting, and with Pepper Potts, and he's like, no, fuck off. And then he's like, okay, I'll figure it out. And then he gets the formula like this. I would have liked maybe 5 more minutes of him trying to figure out the formula. Instead, he was just like, yeah, time travel. Done. Yeah, it's Marvel, but still, like, it was a little quick. But anyway, he finds it, changes his mind. He's coming back. Bada bing, bada boom. Taco scene was hilarious. Love that. Love the taco scene. That was really good. But anyway, then they do the time travel, and now we're in Act 2. So I may have missed some stuff, but it's just spoiler talk. It's mainly just free form right now, as you can tell. I'm just kind of talking. It's because it's enjoyable. I like to ramble a lot. But Act 2 is, in my opinion, the weakest act, not because of anything in particular with how or what goes on, but more particularly with its pacing. I think its pacing is a bit to be desired. It's a little bit too fast, which is funny considering it's a 3-hour movie, but it's a little bit too quick. They do everything a little bit too quick. Most parts are okay. Some parts are not. Starting off, we have New York, which was them going to all get all the Infinity Stones in New York. That was pretty good. I liked Bruce Banner speaking to the Ancient One. I thought that was a very interesting little conversation there. I also like her. She's just a cool character, even though she doesn't do a whole lot. She's pretty cool. I also like how she's shooting the aliens in New York, because obviously she was in New York. Like, what would they have been doing? Oh, look, she's helping out. That's cool. So that's nice. I like that a lot. But their whole dialogue is pretty interesting. Obviously, the idea that Doctor Strange gave away the time crystal or time stone meant something, because Doctor Strange is supposed to be the best of them all. So she eventually gives it out. As long as they come back in, like 5 minutes to give the stone back, basically. Going over to the scepter, which has the Mind Stone in it, that was great. As Winter Soldier being probably my number 1 or number 2 favorite Marvel movie, I really appreciated that scene. I thought they were going to have another big elevator fight scene again, and I would have been okay with it. However, I did really appreciate the Hail Hydra joke. I thought that was great. I thought it was perfect. It made sense, and I loved it. I loved it. It's great. Thought it was awesome. Big fan. So that he gets the scepter. That part's all solid. And then, of course, you have the part with Loki. And I really liked the fact that they got all the major actors again. Robert Redford, Tom Hiddleston, they're all there again. And you got to see what happened after that final shot in the first Avengers. I like Loki's making fun of Cap and everything, and they're kind of moving their way forward. And you kind of get to see all that aftermath, and it really fleshed it out a little bit. I like that. I like that a lot. Unfortunately, Loki yanks the Tesseract and fucks off, and that's pretty hilarious, but I guess they're having like a TV spinoff or something, so there's something going on with that, but that made sense. He just grabbed it and bailed, which is pretty funny. Going from there, though, we also have Captain America fighting Captain America, and all the America's ass comments, which were all fantastic, and I appreciated every single America's ass moment I could possibly have seen on screen. Loved that shit. Don't know why, but it was just a good joke. It was a fantastic joke, and I loved every time they used it. Their little fight scene was good. I'm a little sad it didn't go on for longer. It was comedic, of course. Most of the second act is largely fan service and comedy based, and there is a ton of comedy. Most of it landing, I'd say. It's not as bad as, like, say, Iron Man 3 or anything, because the funny parts remain in the funny areas, but the more emotional parts stay in the emotional areas, which is what I think is important. But Captain America fighting Captain America, I would have liked to have gone on a little bit longer, because the Russo brothers are great at hand-to-hand combat. That's why Winter Soldier is so good, and they could have done a little bit longer. Again, that kind of goes with the pacing. It's already a 3-hour movie, but I still feel like the second act could have used more development. Maybe there should have been an intermission, I don't know. Still, would have liked it to be a little bit longer, but he gets the scepter. Scepter's all good, but then they lose the Tesseract. So in order to get the Tesseract, they have to go back to the 70s, in which or is it the 60s? Vietnam War is the 60s, whatever the time was, to go ahead and get back in the Tesseract. And that part I really enjoyed. I thought everything going on with the, what's the Ant-Man stuff called? Whatever those little vials are called, I thought that was very enjoyable. But more primarily, it was about the Howard Stark and Tony Stark little dynamic duo there. I'm glad that when he stole the Tesseract, he didn't just get chased by guards and there was a big chased in the past sequence. I'm glad that they skipped that and they had all this emotional bonding level with Howard Stark. I thought it was really kind. It made Tony Stark think a little bit more about his parents, about what they thought about him, and how he always seen them as cold-hearted people, maybe at least his father, and he sees a little bit more of his dad in him, but also kind of understood what he was like at the time. I very much enjoyed that. I also like Cap seeing his old, I don't even remember her name if I'm being honest. She's not a very big character. She's only in the first Captain America, but I remember him going in the office, and that was also quite sweet. Going from there, we have a couple other areas. Main one is on oh God, what's it called? I don't remember. The one where Star-Lord is at with the Power Stone. There's that one. War Machine as well as Nebula are going to get the Power Stone. Pretty simple. We have Star-Lord being a doofus, singing and dancing. He gets backhanded by War Machine. They take the Power Stone, but then we have the problem with Nebula's little transmitter and stuff. And originally, I was kind of like, that's dumb. That's a stupid way to bring in conflict with Thanos. But I guess it would kind of make sense. They would have the same transmitter, right? They would still have the same kind of transmitter. It would have the same components. I don't know. It's like if you joined a radio channel And then in the time, and someone goes back in time on the same radio channel, you'll still be talking to them. It's just a different device, but the same device. So I guess that part kind of makes sense. I still think it's a little bit of an annoyance. I didn't like how that was how they created the conflict. I think they could have created the conflict in a better way, but I did at least understand why that was a thing. But of course, Nebula has all of her major issues, and then Gamora's there, and she's fighting off weird people, and then Thanos is there, and yay, Thanos is here, and he's got a cool little helicopter sword, and he's got his armor on, and that's really neato. And not really much with Thanos going on right there. That was our Thanos reveal, but Thanos is a little bit boring right there because he's evil Thanos with no character development. He's before Infinity War Thanos, so he's just, I'm evil, I take stones, I kill all of you, without that voice. I'm glad that Ebony Maw was back there. I liked Maw, he was cool. But overall, there wasn't a whole lot going on there. The main ones that I liked the most was actually the one on Asgard and the one on Vormir. Asgard with Rocket and Thor, this is going back to what I mentioned about Thor. The one major issue I have with Thor's look is not the fact that he is fat for a cheap gag. I don't care about that, actually. I care about the fact that I can't see his emotions as well. Maybe my one or two favorite moment of Infinity War is when Thor is talking to Rocket about a third of the way through the movie, and he's talking about how he has nothing left to lose. And you can tell through his anger and vengeance speech, he's choking back tears, and he's legitimately upset, and it's really heartbreaking. You have a similar moment with his mother here, and his girlfriend, I forget her name, it's Natalie Portman. But you have a similar moment, but I physically can't see it as well because he's got giant hair and a beard. It's not the fact that he's chubby and it looks silly. I mean, it does look silly, but I physically can't see the emotion. If he didn't have the giant beard and he didn't have the weird dread looking long hair, I would be able to physically see his emotional impact so much better. It's not a story based. It's literally I can't see his emotions very well with my eyes. That was the thing I had the issue with because Chris Hemsworth is showing to be a pretty solid, not tragedy actor, but he has some good emotional weight to him. But it was hard to see because it was covered by a bunch of hair. And that was my big issue with it. Also, I think it would have been such a fine idea. Obviously, they couldn't have done so much because they had to get the reality stone out with his mom. And I think this is the day his mom died or whatever. But the main thing I would have liked is if they had all come back, when they had all come back from the time travel, and Thor was just gone, and they asked where Thor was, and Rocket says, he's doing something, he'll be back in 10 minutes. And then 10 minutes later, which is like, was it 3 or 2 months in actual time, he was just lifting really fucking hard. He was just lifting like crazy. And he comes back fit and normal again with his short hair. That would have been a fine gag. It would have been funny, and it would have served the rest of the movie because there's no legitimate consequences. Obviously, if he's in Asgard, I think they get attacked by the Dark Elves. I don't remember Thor Dark World very much, but there could have been some way for him to just have been lifting for 2 months and then come back better again, or maybe get closure with his mother because of that. Because it only takes 10 minutes in their time. I would have been fine with that. I think it would have been a perfect way to have your gag with him being chubby, but then have him look better in the later stages of the movie and not look like the Big Lebowski, which was a joke that Tony Stark made. Finally, we have Vormir, and Vormir, I love Vormir, but I hate Vormir because I love the fact that they did Vormir again, but I hate the fact that it wasn't developed very much. Because we were all sitting there like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to lose someone in Vormir. Oh no. Oh dear. And Nebula didn't say that. And originally I was annoyed by that because why wouldn't you tell them this? But then again, if you had told them that, then it probably would have been a little bit awkward. Or a little bit awkward in the sense of like, yeah, one of you's gonna have to die. One of you's gotta kick it. And it's better to have that right there and then moment. And I do find it a little humorous how Black Widow and Hawkeye are literally fighting to kill themselves. I just think that's kind of funny. They're literally fighting to die. Kind of humorous. However, still, emotionally satisfying. I do think it could have used a little bit more of development, though. I think it was a little rushed. I think the idea of Black Widow, one of the original Avengers, dying could have had a little bit more buildup and a little bit more care put into it because it was a little bit too fast. And also, this is a nitpick, but I always think it's so funny how they lay all pretty dead on the ground, just like Gamora did in Infinity War. It's like, girl, you would be a stain. You would be a red mist, a paste across the entire thing. You would not have any of your limbs. You would just be a complete paste from falling from that height. I'm just saying. Obviously, they can't do that. Obviously, it's PG-13. But I'm just saying, you would be a mist. You'd be like bloody mess in Fallout. Anyway, that part, though, was also very emotionally satisfying, minus the poor buildup, especially for Hawkeye. This gives Hawkeye even more and more character development by losing more people around him. He already lost his whole family. Now he loses Black Widow. And that's the end of Black Widow. She's dead. Gone. And I don't think anyone really cared, which is a little sad. I don't know, but it seemed like everyone cared more about the ending of the movie. But her dying, I didn't have a big emotional impact. I was like, oh man, that's sad. But that was about it, right? I was more surprised when Gamora died because I was surprised they actually did it. I was more like, oh wow, Marvel actually has consequences now. That was my original thought, but I didn't really care about Gamora either. Well, I cared about what Star-Lord would think, but I didn't really care much about Gamora. For Black Widow, I was just kind of I don't know why. I was just a little bit Maybe because her character didn't get as much development. The most development her character got was in Winter Soldier and this movie. And the weird Hulk romance, which was awkward and strange. But anyway, then I guess they got all the stones. They finally get them all. They bring them all back. Black Widow's dead. Everyone's super sad about that. Hawkeye has a great rage scene, or a very small rage scene out on the pier. Really like that. Still think the idea with Thor coming back would have been better. Just me though. Just saying. Now we start in the third act because Nebula has taken Nebula and now has convinced herself that she is now the other Nebula and has made her way into the new area with all the Avengers, which is fair enough. I guess it's fair enough. And so with that, after the little bit emotional scene, they make the Infinity Gauntlet, the Iron Man Gauntlet, which of course does bring a bit of a plot hole where like, oh, how was Iron Man able to make a gauntlet just like that when you needed the forge of Peter Dinklage and the Dying Star to make their own? Well, actually, that was for Stormbreaker, but to make the Infinity Gauntlet, they're the only people who could have done it. So bit of a weird thing there, but whatever. Who cares? It's a Marvel movie. I don't really care too much about that stuff. They make it, give it to Thor. Not Thor, Hulk. Hulk is the only one who would survive the snap. Gives it to him, he snaps. His entire arm is just totally screwed up. Everyone comes back, which is awesome, which I guess makes the rules of the Infinity Gauntlet a little bit different. I thought having all of them and snapping just wiped out half life. I guess it does what you want it to do, what you mentally want it to do. I guess Thanos was thinking in his head half of all life. So I guess when Hulk was thinking half of all life comes back, it allows you. It's kind of like a god hand. It's basically a god hand at this point. So I guess that makes a little bit of sense, I suppose. This giant god hand of sorts. But either way, he does it. Everyone kind of comes back. And then, bada bing, bada boom, Thanos' ship arrives out of the teleporter, out of the little quantum realm or something, and then absolutely obliterates the ever-loving shit out of the Avengers. And I can't believe none of them died. I thought Ant-Man died right there because the bomb blew up like an inch from his face. All right, I don't know why he isn't dead. And Marvel, again, I don't know how a lot of these people aren't dead, but wow, I cannot believe they're not dead because they got slaughtered. He fired 1,000,000 missiles. Like 1,000,000 missiles. And these missiles are the size of small cars. So their entire place gets just bombed. And then Thanos arrives, and he is there with his helicopter sword. And now it's time to fight Thanos. And now we begin the third act. The third act is amazing in terms of spectacle. It is undescribable what they do with this entire thing. It is incredibly impressive. Now, you start off with a pretty standard fight scene against Thanos. That was pretty good, well choreographed, and very enjoyable. Thor dual-wielding was awesome, even though he does look like the Big Lebowski. Iron Man doing Iron Man stuff is great. Captain America being Captain America is wonderful because he's just really smart and he's a great tactician and he's great at what he does. However, let's be honest with ourselves. We all knew what the big part was when Mjolnir flew into Cap's hands, and you think it's into Thor's hands. And no, it goes in his hands, and that is the most badass thing I think I have seen in a long, long time. I didn't think he'd be able to use lightning because he's not the god of thunder. I thought he'd just be able to use the hammer, but who cares? Again, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's about the spectacle at this point. Who gives a shit? But you have this big fight scene where Captain is taking on Thanos pretty hard, and it's very satisfying because Captain America is my favorite Avenger, and I love his ability to fight. I think it's incredibly impressive. I love the choreography, and he himself is just so good of heart and makes it enjoyable to watch. So you have that whole thing. Then you have his shield just get slaughtered by Thanos by his giant helicopter blade, which was also very impressive. And that's when you have your final, like, I'm surprised he didn't say I can do this all day, because I think it would have been nice if he said I can do this all day, even though they already did have the gag earlier. I think after he straps on his barely functioning shield and he kind of like spits blood out because his mouth is all bloody, he can stand up and do his little I can do this all day thing. And then he hears the big reveal, the big thing that is crazy and everything, where Doctor Strange has gathered each and every one of the people back. Get ready for the big fight scene. And then everyone just pummels through, just funnels. It's funnel. Funnel is the word I was looking for. Funnels through all of the portals made by Strange and his acolytes, I guess. The Wakandans, all of the Wakandans, all of the prior people minus Vision or Loki. Oh, minus a lot of them. But all the Wakandans, all of the people from Asgard, I think. You have all of these ships. I don't even know whose ships those were. They were like spacecraft in there. You had all the strange people. You had everybody. You had everybody. Literally everybody. Okay? Everybody. I don't know a single person that wasn't there besides those that were already dead. It was everybody. And then, of course, you got Thanos and his giant worm squid flying things and his dog army and his 4 acolytes. And there comes the big fight scene, right? The giant one take of everything going crazy. Ant-Man fists a giant flying lizard, and it was the most satisfying thing I've ever seen, where he can just go up there and be like, fuck you, and punch a giant lizard in the face. It's the best scene. I love that scene because, you know, he's Ant-Man. He's not going to be doing martial arts. He's not going to be doing flips and kicks. He's just going to run up there as a big boy and start beating on people, you know, because he's not Captain. He's not going to do backflips or anything. He's just going to be like, ugh, whack. And it is all satisfying. It's one of those things where you can deal with a lot of the problems in the earlier part of the movie because of how impressive this spectacle is. This spectacle is not only so impressive, and both on a technical level and the CGI level, like, damn, good job, guys. But just from the nostalgia, just from everyone doing everything, everyone coming together, everyone doing this big battle, it's wonderful. It is everything I would have wanted and more. And that is what I appreciate. Of course, there are a lot of characters that didn't get any screen time during that fight because of it, because you have to have a certain, you know, amount of time in your movie. But it was much of a payoff. Particularly, I like the Black Panther part and the Spider-Man part. Spider-Man stabbing everybody with his cool iron spider was a lot of fun. And I like the part where Black Panther grabbed the gauntlet and was running around and doing flips and kicks. And he had this nice one tracking shot of him doing a bunch of spins and drop kicks and his little purple explosion thing. I like that quite a bit. I thought it was very well choreographed. Then, of course, Doctor Strange is, of course, being Doctor Strange. And he has that moment to Tony where he says, if I told you this was the future, it would no longer be the future. And that makes plenty of sense. So you have your big fight. You have your big fight with Thanos, which I will say I was disappointed with Thanos in this movie. I get it. You can't have the character development that Thanos had in the last movie because this is prior Thanos. But that character development made him a very good villain. Right here, he wasn't super interesting to me because he was just one note. He was, I hate all of you, you must all die. And it was uninteresting. It was very uninteresting. He lost his Gamora part. He lost some of his battle scenes. Most of what made him interesting is gone. And that made Thanos less interesting to me. He's still a great villain. I still like him as a villain. He's better than 90% of the other Marvel villains. But he is still just not as interesting. And it was a little bit disappointing, if I'm being perfectly honest. It was a bit disappointing. But you have your giant fight scene. Then, of course, Captain Marvel arrives and just obliterates everybody. And because she's overpowered as shit. She's completely overpowered. And I mean, I'm sorry if I'm going to sound like that guy, but I got to sound like that guy. Most of the scenes with Captain Marvel in this movie just didn't do it for me. Either she's being snarky and annoying, or she's so blatantly overpowered that it's just unfun to watch. How she can just destroy a ship by flying through it with nothing from nowhere immediately. It's just kind of, yeah, I guess I get it. But I don't know, you ever have that friend who joins your friend group and he's immediately cracking jokes on your behalf or at your expense immediately, and you're kind of looking at him like, who the hell's this guy? You know, you're not allowed to do that unless we've been hanging out for like another good couple more months, right? You can't just do that immediately. That's what I think Captain Marvel is. I've had 10 years of development with all these characters, and I've had about 3 months or less with her. And she feels like the newbie who's trying to fit in, and it's a little bit weird. I'm not a big fan of it. Though you do get your fun little, like, all the female heroes fighting together type thing, which is a nice little bit of fan service. They had the same thing in Infinity War, but that was fighting Proxima Midnight, I think is the name of the girl. That was with Scarlett Johansson and all the rest of them. That was pretty cool. Anyway, you have your big fight scene. Everything's going down. Thanos is getting the stones. Things are going crazy. Everything's going to shit. Thanos finally gets all the stones. It's insane. Or about to get all the stones. And then you have the scene, right? You have the scene. Tony looks at Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is holding back all this water, and he has that nice one. And I may have missed this in the theater, but I would have liked if his hand was slightly turned just a little bit. So when he did his one, you could see the scarring up his hands, up his fingers. I think that would have been a little bit nicer to add a little bit to the character. I think it was like sideways or something, so you couldn't see it. I don't know how they would have done. I may have missed it, but I would have liked that. I think it would have been a nice little addition. But he has that one future, and that gives Tony Stark the mentality that he knows what he's got to do. And you have your wonderful, I am inevitable and I am Iron Man statement. And then the snap goes. A little bit of a continuity error there. When he puts all the Infinity Stones on, he should be surged with power like the Hulk and Thanos was when they got their stones. He shouldn't just be able to snap immediately. There should be like a time where he's having to hold it back. But again, whatever. It's fine. Just nitpick. And then he snaps the gauntlet. And mentally, for him, it's get rid of Thanos and get rid of his army. And his army goes, and without any words, not even a parting word, Thanos sits down and he's gone. And Tony is fucked up. He is so dead. He is so doomed. And he is sitting there completely reeling and dying. You've got nice Spider-Man coming in trying to comfort him, and then Pepper Potts is there, and that's a pretty emotionally solid scene. And that was the end of Iron Man. First movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First besides Black Widow, the big Avenger to die at the end, the one who saved everybody. Proof that Tony Stark has a heart, And then that's when things get sadder. And then when the movie starts to wrap up, you have the big funeral with everybody sitting there for Tony and everything. That's pretty heartbreaking. And funny enough, though, the scene where he dies is pretty sad. But you know what scene actually got me? Cheeseburger's comment. The Cheeseburger's comment, I was sitting there like, ugh. Because I watched Iron Man 1 recently. And that was, it's the first thing. He comes back from the Iron Man studio. He's like, I want a double cheese, or, he wants an American cheeseburger. And then he wants to hold a press conference or something. And that's the first thing you wanted was a cheeseburger. And so when she says cheeseburgers and you see Jon Favreau there like, that was rough. That was pretty sad. That was the part that really got me. Definitely. That was the part where it really was just like sadness. And then we have our final reveal of the movie. Captain America goes back to put all the stones where they're supposed to go. He does it. All the stones are there. And then he's gone. And we're like, where's Cap? And then we go to a park bench. And old man Cap is sitting there on this park bench. Good makeup, by the way. You can tell it was Cap too. But he's sitting there on this bench. And he said he decided to get a little bit of that life that Tony mentioned. A little bit of that retirement. So it seems that in this plot, Captain America goes back and he lived the whole life, and then during the funeral he walked up and sat by that bench. And well, I mean, there he is, old man Cap. And you know, as that kind of caught me off guard when I first saw it. I was like, whoa, wait, what the hell? And then when he was, you know, giving the shield over to Falcon, he puts his hand on him and you see the wedding ring. You're like, oh, there's that. And, you know, he asked about his girl, and he's like, no, I don't have anything to say. You know, I'm sure she passed because she passed in Winter Soldier, so I'm sure she's passed away. If I recall, she has Alzheimer's in there too. But, you know, she passed away. And then the final scene is him with her in the 40s or whatever. And they're like dancing in the house. And it is so heartwarming. I'm so okay with this. As a Captain America fan, as a huge fan of him, I'm so okay with that. Is it not a soldier's number one goal to fight a fight you know for a fact you are right in? No politics, no back and forth, no personal moral judgment. You know you are right. You know the fight you are fighting, you are right. And you tried your hardest and you succeeded. And you go back to the woman you love and you live a life until you're old and dying and you're married the entire time. Is that not like a soldier's dream? Is that not a career soldier's like big, like number one goal? To fight a fight you know you're right in, win that fight, and then go home and settle down with your wife for the rest of your life? I mean, maybe I can't speak for all soldiers, but I guess in the 40s, that was probably it, right? And it's such a fitting end to a soldier like Captain America. It's such a fitting end. He doesn't have to die to end his story. His story's over. He retired. However, I will admit, when I first saw that movie and I walked out of it, I was like, man, about 5 days after he goes back, he's probably just like, man, cell phones were really cool. Man, cell phones were nice. I really liked cell phones. You know, no polio was kind of cool. It's probably just, I'm sure he's reeling that all the technology he had in the modern day is kind of gone now. Because I would definitely be. You know, internet, computers, I kind of miss those. But anyway, I mean, I guess it speaks to volumes of how much he loves his wife. So anyway, that's Endgame. And funny enough, I have no real interest in seeing it again. I might see it again just for the hell of it, but I'm good. I'm good. Marvel movies have become bloated, very bloated, and we all know that. Some are great, some are mediocre. And overall, I'm glad that it's over in a weird way. It didn't really end on a whimper. It ended on a big spectacle. I'm pleased with the ending. It isn't the greatest Marvel movie, but it is a great one. I was about to say a good one, but I would call it a great one. It is a great one, and I am happy. I am very happy. Yeah. Anywho, for all of you who have watched all the way through to here, all the way through, I'm going to add a discount code for the merch store. Use code Endgame to get 15% off everything in the store. Literally everything in the merch store. Just a little bit of a nice you and me talk. You know, if you stay all the way to the end, I'll give you a little bit of a bonus. Something to have. I don't know. It'll last for about a week, so, you know, there's that. So use promo code Endgame on the Bricky merch store in the description if you want to. And yeah, good movie. Great movie. Really liked it. Very pleased. Not my number one, not as good as Infinity War, but still pleased with how it came out. Satisfied, and I am happy. Well, I don't know if I'll watch a whole lot of Marvel movies after this. I might kind of be done. I don't know. Spider-Man Far From Home, I'm kind of just about. I don't know if I want to see the new Doctor Strange movie or I don't know. We'll see. I guess we'll see. Oh, well. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. My name has been Brick. You're all beautiful people. The last video and the next one are on the screen right now, and I'll see you later.